Hello YouTube. Thought it was time for an update on the 2016 Kawasaki Teryx that I've got, and this particular video is going to go over the suspension. If I could go back 3 years, go back in time to when I first got this buggy, I would go back and take the stock Fox shocks right out, sell them on eBay, and upgrade the suspension. I waited way too long. I never realized how stiff it was. The stock suspension's just way too stiff. So what I've got here is Bandit 3.0s, and let's take a closer look. Here you can see the Bandit UTV suspension, as it's called there on that label, Generation 3. I'm running limit straps like they recommend. I feel more comfortable having those. The fronts are 16 and the rears are 18. And this suspension makes a huge difference on ride quality. It's not as hard on my back. The stock suspension, I could feel each and every bump. This is much more soft, much more forgiving, and overall I get better traction. I mean, everything's just 100% better than the stock Fox shocks. I want to show you how I mounted these, so let's take a closer look at that. Here's what they look like from the front. You can see that I've got a grade 8. That's important. Grade 8. This is actually 3/8 inch washer and a grade 8 3/8 inch bolt. The total length of it is 3.5 inches, and I used a nylock on the end of it. Alright, now continuing to look at this setup, what I did is, like I said, this is a 3.5 inch grade 8 bolt. I've got a washer, a washer and the bolt on this side. Here I used one washer. This is a 3/8 by 1 inch metal spacer I picked up at Tractor Supply. And then I've got one more washer, grade 8, all this is grade 8. The limit strap, washer, and the nylock. And the reason I did it this way is because originally I used washers like this, and as you can see, hopefully they are very bent. These do not hold up, especially that one. Another thing I found was originally I did not have a washer here at the beginning, and what was happening was the hex nut was actually starting to pull through the mounting hole of this upper A-arm, which is definitely no good. So if you do it this way, you definitely want to use grade 8 hardware. Now at the top, it's the exact same idea. It's a 3.5 inch long grade 8 3/8 bolt, and it goes from right to left. Bolt, washer. I've got two washers here. The 1 inch spacer, washer, and then a nylock. And the reason I've got one more washer up here is if you jack this up and I tighten this strap, it leaves a few millimeters all the way down the spring so that the strap isn't rubbing the spring. Here's a look at the limit straps and suspension in the rear. Again, these are 18 inch. Okay, it's a little tricky to get an angle on this, but I think you can see everything going on here at the top. And the bottom's identical, so I'm just going to show you the top. This is a 12 millimeter, 3.5 inch long bolt, same length as the ones in the front. However, I did not use washers at all on this. Because the bolt heads and the nut were so big, it wasn't necessary, and as you can see, it's a perfect fit, so I can't even add washers if I wanted to. However, it worked out perfectly. Now what this is here is for this spacer, it's actually a 1/4 inch NPT black pipe coupler. And I put it in my drill press and drilled it out to 1/2 inch, and it's a perfect little spacer, and it's only like $1. And that's when I painted them black, and I did that on the top, bottom, both sides, again with the nylock nut. Here's another look at the suspension at a different angle. As you can see, I use speed straps. I got them online. The cheapest I found them was about $44 a set. Ended up being about $100 shipped. And you can get them from Bandit, I think, as well. And I think they might actually sell the same ones, the Speed Strap brand, but I think they're a little bit more money. So I just searched around and found the best deal I could. So that pretty much does it for the suspension. Very happy with it. They are a little bit cheap. I mean, you know, I think they're $1,200 or something. And if you look at other competitors, it can be $600 per shock. But I think it's worth it. You know, this is an off-road vehicle, so I don't want to spend a fortune on it, and I just use it for a kind of a weekend warrior thing. So for me, this worked out pretty good. My only complaints are that the adjuster, the clickers for your rebound and compression, when you screw them in and out, you can just feel they're kind of cheap. They don't click very great, and they just feel a little bit gritty. Other than that, the way the preload works and how you adjust that with a spanner wrench, or they just send you a metal dowel, probably drill rod or something, works pretty good. I feel like my setup, you can see, if you look, you can see how compressed the top of that spring is. I had to run a lot of preload, probably about 2 inches adjusted down from the top to get the ride height that I originally had. Well, that's something else I need to talk about. But anyway, I think I'm going to contact them. I think I might need stiffer springs in the front. I've got a 4500 winch and a big bumper, new aftermarket bumper that weighs a lot. So I got to look into that. And the last thing I want to talk about is you may notice there is no bracket lift kit. With the Fox shocks, I used to have a Super ATV upper 2-inch upper bracket lift kit, I guess is what you would call it. And it mounted right up there. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that. The really nice thing about buying these upgraded shocks is that you can remove that. You don't need it anymore. And then the geometry goes back to the way it was stock. You gain more travel, and I'm still lifted about, well, actually a little more than 2 inches above stock. So that's a really great thing about upgrading to these Bandit Generation 3 suspension. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my suspension upgrades. There are more. I've got A-arms and whatnot, and I'm going to get into that in the next video. So keep an eye out for that, because I have done a lot more modifications since the last videos. Stay tuned. Thanks.